There we go. Welcome back. As you can see, Audie is in one of his photobomb moods. He's only 3 feet away, so he'll probably be back. Today, I had a project for you, even though today is not Project Sunday, it's Saturday. I had planned to do this as a 2-part project, Saturday and Sunday, but it didn't work out as I planned. So we'll talk about that when we come. Now, I have to apologize for my voice. It's very, very scratchy. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not quite sure what it is. Maybe I'm coming down with something. Who knows? Okay, the project. This project is the lamp that I picked up a couple of weeks ago at Bedford. Now, if you'll recall, the history of this project is I saw the lamp a couple of months ago, and I decided not to purchase it. It was interesting. I filmed it. I wanted to share it with you. But in the end, I just said, $85 is too much. And someone actually commented and said, you know, Sue, that would be a great project. And you know it's worth more than $85. The only way this piece is really worth more than $85 is if I keep it. And of course, this is my opportunity to talk about this too. As we go out thrifting, we see things we want, we'd like to have it. Is this going to enhance the quality of your life in an amount equal to what you're paying for it? I like this lamp. It will almost certainly enhance the quality of my life, $85 worth, or actually it's going to turn out to be a bit more than that. And because I think it makes an interesting project, that really tipped it for me. So I went back, it was still there. I knew it would be because it's a very high price for a piece that was absolutely not functional, and furthermore, even needed work just to be able to fit a shade on it. So I knew it would be there. I knew it was overpriced. And, you know, every now and then, it's okay if something's overpriced. You know it's going to be waiting for you if you want it. So I did get it. And it is our project piece for this weekend. Now, the thing with this lamp is I approached it just with the camera, just as I would approach any project. In other words, when I do something for you, I usually don't pick it apart in advance so that I can weed out any potential problems. I've always said, at least to myself, well, if there are problems, we're going to learn from them. And most of the time, well, all the time, we've been very lucky. There have been no problems. Well, today my luck ran out and I found a problem as I got into it. So let's take a look at the film, what we were doing, because today's project was going to be the disassembling of the lamp. So that's what we got into. Let's take a look, and then I'll see if I can fit this together to make some sense for you when we're done. Well, this is the lamp that we're going to be working on today. And before we get into it, I thought you might like to just take a look at what it looks like right side up, top to bottom, in its current condition. So what we're doing now, and this is the beginning of our project, is we are going to disassemble this lamp. We have a vase cap here. We have our hollow pipe, the wires go through here. We have our sockets. We have this, which is usually called a box. Ordinarily, this is 2 pieces, and we have all kinds of old, really, really corroded wire in here. The job of the box is to hold all these connections, and there should be a lid. So as we come down here, we have our base, and this is a vase base. As you can see, it's triangular because our vase is triangular, which we will see. And we have our power cord. And if you look at this, it's in 2 separate pieces. It gives you an idea of how old it is. This is definitely ancient. It must be replaced. And so what we're going to start with is undoing these nuts. Now, please look at this cord. Even if it weren't for the fact that this is an elderly 2-piece cord, we have some serious issues here. This cannot be plugged in. If you ever come across a lamp like this, do not get it into your head that the best way to figure out whether or not it's working is to stick the plug into an outlet. No, don't do it. Just very quickly, see this? There you go. That's what you do with something like this. You want to make sure nobody ever does anything crazy like plug it in. It's not just a question of the shock the individual could get, but you could end up starting an electrical fire that'll burn your house down. I'm not exaggerating. This is so dangerous. All right, I disposed of that cord. What I wanted to show you was the new cord. This is a replacement cord. I got this cord specifically because, if you'll recall, the other was 2 separate wires. This is the 2 wires with a twist. Not exactly the same color, but as you can see, it's probably not really all that far off. The original was brown, the replacement is brown. This is a modern, safe, polarized cord. Notice, you're not seeing any loose wires coming out of the bottom. We are not going to be wiring today. Today, we're just going to be taking apart. The next video, we will be rewiring. But I thought you might like a chance to see this and see that you can get these old-fashioned looking cords today that are perfectly safe and perfectly up to code. Okay, now here's what I got once I unfastened the nuts from the bottom. Here is the bottom of our base. It's where the nut and the washers were. Here are the nut and the washers. I can clean them up, but it won't be a big deal if I replace them. So we'll see. If they clean up nicely enough, they'll stay. If they don't, they're going somewhere else. Now, I am documenting this. As you know, I'm filming the whole thing. If you are not going to film the whole thing, this is about the point where you would snap a picture. So you have nut, washer, and then the threading on your rod. By the way, here is the rod. As you can see, it goes up. This is the portion that is concealed within the vase. The reason you want this is because you want to document the order in which the pieces came off, because that tells you the order in which they are going back on. Now, I am definitely going to see how much of this can be salvaged. We've got rust here, but I should be able to clean that up. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with our base here. get that cleaned up. As you can see, it's in need. And this is our vase. Again, I'm going to clean it up, but I'm also going to take photos of these markings on the bottom. All right, we'll be back. Well, I can't say I am surprised. The marking reads hand-painted Nippon. So the vase is about 100 years old, minimum, could be older. We have some markings here. Obviously, this is some kind of export sticker. It is all in Japanese. So I'm going to clean this, but I'm going to clean the bottom very carefully to try to preserve that sticker. It was, well, I gotta say, that's not exactly the cleanest drilling I've ever seen. The smaller hole in here is better. But yeah, that's a pretty nice gouging. But I do need to get this all cleaned up. So, back again. Okay, what we have here is the clean base. And it is, here, this is just, behold, it's just ordinary furniture polish. I've got a number of different kinds, but I got this one out of the cabinet because I thought this one might be the most familiar to you. It's going to sit there for a while. It's on top of a rag here and some paper towels. And what it's going to do is suck in the furniture polish. When I feel like it's sucked in enough, I'm going to turn it over, do the same thing on the other side. What I will probably do is wipe up the excess with the paper towel and smear it all over the top side. The object of this is to hydrate the wood. This wood was actually pretty well hydrated. It was probably not in a particularly filthy or dry spot because the wood isn't really dried out that badly. Nevertheless, it just got a really serious scrubbing because it was very dirty. So I want to replace any of the moisture I took out in the scrubbing, and I want to do it with oil, which is basically what the wood would have in it naturally. All right, we'll come back when we flip this over. Okay, here is the base now. I think you can see that it's a lot cleaner. It's got a nice sheen to it. It's in much better shape overall than it had been. The vase, I'm not holding out much hope that you're going to be able to see much difference because you're not seeing it in person, you're seeing it on video, and that is going to make a difference in terms of what you see. Where I see the difference is in the yellows. There had been, I don't know, it looked like somebody put Gulden's mustard on it in places. It had been quite dark and discolored. Very likely that was nicotine. We've talked about this before. In the mid-century, half of all American households were smoking households. And so if you get something that is pre-1950s, odds are you're going to see nicotine damage. You're going to see that dirt and staining. And I think that's what this was. You can usually tell because the water comes out brown, not gray like regular dirt. It's decidedly brown. So this is nice. This has been cleaned out, as you can see, and we do want it nice and clean because we're going to be sealing this off pretty much permanently once we rewire it. So might as well have it as clean as possible. All right, next up on our cleaning, it's going to be these brass pieces. Now this is old brass. This is new brass. This piece, by the way, is going to be the cap for our little box over here. and this will slide off. So I'm going to start by cleaning off these two pieces because, you know, they come off, and it'll be very easy to work with them. And they're basically cosmetic pieces. They're not holding wires, they're not securing wires, they're not going to be used to turn the bulbs on and off. So I can actually throw them in a sink full of soapy water, which is something I'm not going to be able to do to these sockets. So that's what we're going to do here. Okay. Here are our brass pieces. I scrubbed them up, gave them a little bit of a polish, just enough to make it look like antique brass and not, ew, I'm so dirty anymore. I took out the rod that held the wire, and next we are going to start working on these pieces. And the first thing I'm going to do is notice there are little screws on these sockets. I'm going to take a screwdriver and remove the sockets. That's next. So, the best laid plans of mice and men. One socket came off very nicely. The other socket will not, and here's why. This little piece right here, this little nub, it's usually called a nipple, is separate from this body piece. And you can see in there, it's soldered in place. We have one in here, but the soldering has given way. It is just spinning loose. So, I suppose it would be possible, if I were willing to put the craziness into it, to get that off. But then I would have to resolder the little nipple on, and I'm just not sure that's a project we want to get into on this channel, because soldering, frankly, it involves hot molten metal. It's probably not a good plan for beginners. So, what I have done is I have gone to my lamp supplier and ordered a new piece that will look like this. The new one will have a lid. It will also have all of these little parts as well. I would have preferred not to do that, but I have one of the old sockets, and one of the reasons I wanted to do it this way was I wanted the chance to show you how to rewire an antique socket, how to do it safely. But we have a socket, and so we will probably set that aside and do that on another video sometime. So, where are we right now? We have our lamp disassembled, and we have our parts here. So, what we're going to do is set this aside for a while. This is good. And then the next video, we're going to put this all back together. And by the way, I've been doing this on my ironing board, which needs a good cleaning now, because I have all this nasty little lamp part bit dirt. So, despite the fact that I would have preferred that this job go a little more according to plan, I don't think it's such a bad idea to give you a chance to see that things go wrong. When you're dealing with an old piece, you will run into problems like this, and you have to be able to cope. As I say, we could probably undo this, but ultimately, it's easier to just buy the new piece. It will certainly be here in 2 or 3 days, so hey, we're good to go. Okay, so everything's rolling along smoothly. The lamp was easy to take apart. The nuts holding the base on the bottom, they were not rusted together. That's usually a serious watch point. And there has been more than one occasion when I've actually had to take a Dremel and carve the nuts off. nothing like that. We're good, we're good, we're good, right up until the end. Because when you take a lamp apart, you start at the bottom and work your way up. Perfect, 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 got up to the socket. And then that little nipple is just spinning loose in the hole. The soldering apparently just gave way. Now, I had a lot of options. I could have tried to force the socket off. It's possible that if I had more time available, I might have considered that, because it would have been necessary to sort of wedge something in there, hold it still, and then twist. Not overwhelmingly hard, but that is the sort of fix that often does damage to the parts. In the end, I decided it was the universe's way of telling me I should probably not try to rewire those sockets. They are not UL approved. Now, of course, my plan had been I was going to rewire them in such a way as they would be acceptable by today's standards. Obviously, they wouldn't have the little underwriter's seal, but I felt I could rewire them so they would function as if they did. And like I say, I'm thinking the universe just didn't want me to do that. Probably just as well, because even though I felt going into this that we were at a point, we've done a lot of lamp repair videos, we were at a point where we could start to look at getting rid of the safety net, so to speak, that we could start looking at how to rewire older pieces, keeping as many of the older pieces as possible. It's not the sort of thing you would ever rewire for sale, but it would be safe enough in your own home. Now, I have done things like this. I have used antique and vintage cords. I will only use NOS. That's called new old stock. So I want the cord to be brand spanking new. But if it came out of a 1940s box, so much the better. And I was able actually to get a number of cords like that. And when I was able to get them, boy, I grabbed a bunch of them. I got a box of these somewhere. Because you want to keep the look of the old cords, but then you have to understand how you're wiring it. And you have to do things like mark the polarization on the plug. You can't really sell it to anyone because you know what the polarization is, but who knows what they're going to do with it. And I use cords like that on lamps that are never going to be unplugged. In other words, the only person that's ever going to touch that cord is me, and I know where to look for my polarization marks. I know which prong goes into which hole in the outlet. And I thought, yeah, we're probably ready for this. And the universe disagreed. So what's going to happen at this point is I have ordered a replacement. And this replacement will be the little body and the two little sockets. Now, the total cost on that, including shipping, is just under $50. These things are not cheap. It is possible if I wanted to go to a number of different companies, I could have gotten the parts necessary to make it myself. But even at that point, because I'd be using a number of different companies, the shipping cost would have exceeded the $50. So, and that's what I meant when I said before, it has to be worth more than $85. At this point, we are probably looking at closer to $150, maybe more than that after I put a shade on it. But what I did want you to see, obviously, is how to take this apart, how to clean it, get this all disassembled. Now, I still have one of those sockets that is perfectly fine, not a problem. And eventually I will get the other socket off the side that had that sort of loose spinning nipple. I will save that. We will learn to rewire an old socket. We're going to do that. I do think it's something you should know, even if you never intend to use that skill. Something you should know how to do. We will do it. But when the project continues, in other words, we got it apart, when it goes back together, it is going to go back together with new parts. And I gotta say, it's probably for the best. It's going to result in a demonstrably safer lamp. It's also going to result in a lamp I can sell, because everything will be compliant with modern codes. It won't just be, my word as the little sort of amateur electrician who made it compliant. All the parts will be compliant. So I could sell it. I could pass it off to someone else. I wouldn't have to say, well, make sure you get this particular prong into that hole. Maybe it's for the best. I think the lesson to be learned here is no matter how many times we get lucky and a project goes off smooth as silk, just like clockwork, no problems, there is always going to be that one project where things just don't work out the way you expect them to, and you need a backup plan. My backup plan, obviously, was I was going to purchase a new socket cluster. That's what they call it, by the way, when it's more than one socket together. They call it like a socket cluster. That was my backup plan. I might have to purchase a new socket cluster. I didn't want to do that. Actually, it wasn't the cost that was troubling. It was I really, really wanted to keep as many of these old parts as I could. Now, I can keep these old parts. I can find a way to do this. I will salvage as much as I can, and I will reuse them somewhere. They're not going to be pitched out. They're just not going to be used on this particular project. Okay, so what we had today was the disassembling of a vintage lamp. This lamp is older than most of the lamps we've dealt with, because most of the lamps we've dealt with have been 1930s and more recent. This one, this could actually be 20s. So we have never worked with a 2-wire cord. This is sort of brand new to us. Now, mind you, all cords are 2 wires. We just haven't dealt with them when they're separate and floating free in the ether. So, hopefully this was at least a little interesting to you. This is only half the project. When it's really going to get good is when we put it back together. So, we are going to do that. We're not going to be able to do it tomorrow because I don't have the parts, but I hope we're going to be able to do it next weekend. All right, please go over to the SueMe's Angels Facebook page. Take a look at the giveaways. Stick around. They are a great bunch of mostly ladies. There are some gentlemen over there, but they're a great bunch. So stick around. I'm sure you're going to be very happy over there. And on our way out, we are going to look at a slideshow. I will see you all tomorrow. Have a terrific day.